Hello! So approximately 2.5 weeks ago now, I closed a production of Fun Home. Yeah, I know, surprise. Normally I might have mentioned something about it on this channel, but I didn't. Mainly because the entire experience was a nightmare. First and foremost, I'll give you just like a little bit of background on Fun Home. So if you've never heard of it before, Fun Home is a musical theater adaptation of the graphic novel by Alison Bechdel. Yes, Alison Bechdel, that Alison Bechdel, the creator of the Bechdel test. And it's essentially a memoir piece where Alison Bechdel, who is a lesbian cartoonist, talks about her childhood in Beech Creek, Pennsylvania, and her relationship with her father, who was also gay, a closeted gay man who ultimately ends up killing himself. And it's an amazing, incredible piece of theater. It won the Tony Award for Best Musical. And what's more, it is a piece where the central character is a lesbian, which is something that we don't see a lot in musical theater or even mainstream media, because it's Alison's memoir as an adult, and it also talks about her as a child and her time at university. The character of Alison is actually played by 3 actors. And I was fortunate enough to play Big Alison, the full-sized Alison. I'm wearing my costume shirt for this video so you can like get the vibe of how I was during the performance. And in so many ways, being cast in this role for me was huge. It was super meaningful to me as a queer performer. It has been a really long time since I've had the opportunity to do a role with so much depth, so much nuance and emotion, and like so much meat to it. Unfortunately, as I said, the process itself was an absolute nightmare from beginning to closing. And I just want to touch on some of the main factors which made it such a negative experience for me, and also offer some solutions to avoid creating situations like the one we experienced. Number 1, if you're a director and you want to do a theater piece where the central character is part of a historically marginalized community and you yourself are not a member of that community, think twice. Just think twice. Just say to yourself, why is my perspective the most important when we're talking about the lived experience of this group of people? So for example, in Fun Home, we have Alison Bechdel, main character, who is a lesbian woman cartoonist. And our director was a man who clearly had no interest in even listening to the voices of the queer actors in the room. He definitely came into the piece thinking, oh, this is about a dysfunctional family. I myself come from a dysfunctional family, and I'm gonna bring all of that baggage and that trauma into this story, which actually has nothing to do with me. That is super inappropriate, and it is also doing a massive disservice to the characters and communities who the piece should be celebrating. If, as a director, you want to put on a play about a Black family's lived experience and you yourself are not Black. Or if you're a director and you want to do a play where the main character is disabled, but you yourself are not disabled, think twice. Also, if you are a theater organization and you look around and say, wow, our staff, our artistic board, our guest directors who we bring in to work with are not reflective of diversity, whether it's racial, gender, sexuality, ability. There is a much bigger issue, right? And that issue of representation within the organization is not going to be solved by doing a production of Fun Home and saying, look how diverse we are. All that situation is ever going to result in is the one that we experienced, where the actors in the room with the lived experience of being queer and being trans were ultimately harmed by the director and the process. And I think that kind of leads me nicely into my second observation. If you, as an artistic director, a director, a music director, a choreographer, even if you're involved in the backstage workings of an artistic organization, if you are unable to comprehend and deliver basic respect to non-binary, trans, and other gender-expansive members of the production, that's a huge problem. You probably should not be working in that capacity, especially if it's a capacity of leadership, because people take cues from leaders in the room, and if the leader is not setting the tone on respect, It is not going to be given across the board. I cannot quantify how many times my pronouns were disrespected from first rehearsal to closing night. I also really cannot quantify how many times I was subsequently told, oh, it's so hard. Oh, I'm old, it's generational. Oh, and one of my favorites, I swear I get it right when you're not here. Whenever I'm talking about you, I'm always right. This production, I probably got misgendered more than every other experience combined. And it was so bad that there was one tech day where a member of the production staff actually made me cry because they pretended they didn't know what a pronoun was. It is not hard to treat trans people with respect. It is not hard to get someone's pronouns right. It might feel awkward or uncomfortable for you at first. It might take some practice, but it is so possible. And I think especially in the theater industry where there are so many trans, non-binary, and other gender expansive performers, and also people who use different pronouns who are cis, which is also something that exists in this world. There were so many things that were bad about this process that I just don't have the time or energy to get into. But I do want to say just like 3.5, like 1.5 more things. The cast was absolutely incredible. This is genuinely the first and only time in my artistic career where I did not have to kickstart the labor of saying, this is not okay. The cast was so phenomenal and so proactive about saying, here are the things that we're experiencing in this rehearsal room which are not okay, and what are we as a collective going to do about it? And I really respect that this cast wanted to do that in service to ourselves as individuals, to say we deserve to be treated with respect. We deserve transparency. We deserve to feel safe in an artistic environment. And also across the board in service of the musical itself, to say, we all really love Fun Home. We want this production to be as good as it can be. So let's remove the barriers which are making it impossible for us to do our best work. And was it ultimately successful? I'd say in some ways yes, in some ways no. And I don't want to speak on behalf of the cast and how they all felt about the changes that were made and the concessions that were given to us. So I think I'll just leave it there. I do wish that this experience with Fun Home had been one of those euphoric and affirming experiences, because it really was such an honor and so special to be able to play this role. It's a completely other topic and I'm not going to get into it because I'll get emotional really fast, but the ability to play this complex queer woman who has such nuanced and difficult family dynamics and relationships with her parents and her own sexuality at different stages of life. So much of it felt so relevant and deeply personal. Even though it's Allison's story, it really did in a lot of ways feel like I was telling parts of my own story as a queer person on stage, and that was, an indescribable experience. And I will see you on Sunday with hopefully a small clip from the show. Bye-bye. If you cannot treat trans people with respect, what do I want to say? I just don't think that you should be allowed to be around. I don't think you should be allowed to be in society.